All right, Nick, let's talk about the Oklahoma Sooners. Brent Venables and co. have had a really great offseason so far, but you got to start thinking about the future. You can't just think about 2023. And they got a commit this past week that I think is going to be huge, especially for Venables and that defense.
Miles, I agree with you 100%. It looks like the lifeblood of the Oklahoma Sooner program remains strong. But before we get into that report, I've got an interesting question for you Sooners fans to answer in the comment section below. Look, this is one of the blue blood programs in all of college football. A lot of great football players, of course, have played at Oklahoma. A lot of great coaches and especially assistant coaches. And that leads me to my question. Who is the greatest play caller in Oklahoma Sooners history? There's a lot of interesting ones. There's one that was there a few years ago that was pretty good. May have a little bitter taste in your mouth, but he could still be up there high on the list. I won't say his name. I'll let you say it for me. But whoever it is, give us the greatest Oklahoma Sooner play caller, in your opinion, in the comment section below. All right, Miles, I'll throw it back to you now. What's the latest out of Oklahoma?
Yeah, Nick, when you are an Oklahoma Sooner and you have a defensive minded head coach like Brent Venables, you got to think about building that defense. And when you get a 2024 recruit, 4-star guy that as highly touted as a guy like James Nesta, you got to feel good. Let's get into the article here. This is over from Hayes Fawcett on 3 Sports. A lot of great articles and tweets about recruiting news, high schoolers going to college level. I think he's got a lot of stuff, so go give him a follow over on Twitter. But Nick, it says 4-star linebacker James Nesta of Cornelius Williams Amos Hugh High. That's a big mouthful there. Cornelius, North Carolina, Williams Amos Hugh High announced his commitment to Oklahoma Tuesday evening. The 6'4", 210-pounder chose the Sooners over North Carolina and Miami. This is Nesta talking here. What stood out most to me about Oklahoma was how every detail matters to them in their program, Nesta said. It all contributes to being a championship team. Coach Roof and Coach Chavis are who I'm definitely the closest with, Nesta said. I've been able to develop a great relationship with both of them from the very beginning of talking to them and buying into what their plan for me is. Their defensive plan for me and their scheme is to use me as a cheetah or a will. And that is a great use for this guy, Nick, because he did very well in a role very similar to that last year, his junior season. He finished up with 41 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. This guy is great off of the edge, very quick, great pass rushing prowess there. Coming in at 6'4", 205, very prototypical size-wise for a linebacker as well. This guy has a lot of size on him. I think he's going to be a great fit to this Oklahoma program. But, Nick, I want to ask you now, give us a little bit of the higher tier thought on what does a guy like Nesta coming to Oklahoma mean for this program in its future?
So there's 2 points. The first point, and I talk about it all the time, right? Nesta took his official visit to Oklahoma this past weekend. It's always a good sign. It shows the ability that the program has the talent to get these recruits to commit, to kind of close them on the deal of coming to the school at the end of an official visit or right after an official visit. That's always a good sign because all these recruits, right, they've got a million different coaches, a million different, assistant coaches in their ear saying, hey, come to our program. This is going to be great. Don't go to that other place. The fact that they're able to get this guy to commit shows how much they actually focus on getting these guys, getting them around the right people, around the official visits, showing them what they need to show them to get them to want to come to Oklahoma, especially since this is a North Carolina kid. So that's a great sign from the recruiting standpoint there. But I want to focus on sort of a high level point here is like you alluded to in the opening, Miles, we're starting to turn our eye to 2024 in terms of the recruiting department. And it's going to be really brutal come fall and into winter as we get close to the first signing day of a lot of top flight recruits. We're getting some commits now, but there's a lot of other guys, a lot of 4 or 5-star elite level top prospects that are going to be under a lot of competition where all the blue bloods are going to be going for them. That's just the reality of the game. What you need to do if you want to be a top flight program and do a good job recruiting, you need to make sure you have at least solid players at every key position that you're targeting to get better at this offseason. So that way, if you go after a top flight recruit and you lose them, you're not totally hosed. And that's exactly what this kind of guy is, because this is a good player. He's a really nice player, comes from a good school, has a lot of good physical attributes. Is he the best linebacker defensive prospect of all time? No. Is he the best linebacker defensive prospect in his class? No, but he's a good, solid player and a good, solid prospect. I think he'll have a nice career at Oklahoma. But you get a guy like this to commit, it now allows Venables and company to say, okay, We know we've got some guy that we know can do a good job for us. Now we can go out and try and find guys that'll do great jobs for us, the playmakers, the difference makers, because we kind of got the safe route. We kind of had a backup plan in place. And that's not really a nice thing to say about Nesta, to be honest, that he's a backup plan, but that's the reality of how you have to structure big time college football programs. You got to make sure you have a solid foundation for your roster instead of committing all in on the 5-stars. Because if you don't have that solid foundation, and go after the 5-stars and you lose them, your program's going to stink, and then it just builds on itself in a bad feedback loop. I love that Oklahoma has a solid foundation of quality players that at the very least can be nice, solid starters for this football team in the future. It will allow them to go really aggressively at the 5-stars that they really value, that could be the difference makers in the long term. From that perspective, that's why I love a commitment like this.